My name is Mike Henley, and I'm Deputy Chair of Consultants Committee and Chair of the Pay Terms and Conditions Subcommittee. And I'm going to just give you a really quick talk of an update around pay and both normal pay and also around additional pay for things like waiting lists, etc., and extra contractual work in general. Obviously, work continues all year round, really, on pay, and most recently we gave DDRB oral evidence. There's a little QR code there so you can look at the written evidence we gave the DDRB, and that we now know that the DDRB report is with government. By the time you hear this talk, it might be that the report is out in the wild. At the moment it's not. What we've done is we've done a pay survey to see what people felt that they should be awarded and whether they would take industrial action if it wasn't as much as they felt. And actually the answer to that is it's pretty similar to last year. Most people would take industrial action if they didn't think it was a fair amount, so very similar to last year before the industrial action we took. We've also done some focus group stuff to see what people's opinions is around pay, particularly those that wouldn't want to take industrial action or those that were undecided. And we've got internally our own feelings about what should happen with hard pay items, and then the more soft pay items, and then non-pay items. And we built all of these into an actions table depending on what the outcomes from the DDRB are. And we're obviously always looking at how we work together and coordinate within the BMA as a whole between the different branches of practice such as resident doctors and SAS colleagues. Obviously, last year's industrial action did have a huge impact, with some colleagues getting almost 19% uplift, and we're going to look to see how that's affected your pay shortly. But it does show you that none of us want to take industrial action, but if you do take it, it absolutely does have an impact. And in fact, the impact of it was bigger than any of the DDRB awards over the last 15 or so years, so it was very, very significant. It has helped a bit, but there's still further to go. But one of the important elements about it was that we always felt it was work unfinished. It's only the first down payment on pay restoration, and within that, although some people did well at over 19%, not everybody did so well. So we need to be floating all boats, and we need to stand together to do that. Not everybody can wait many years for pay restoration. If you're coming up to retirement, you may be about to retire. You will take that loss of pay, that 25% was still down, with you into retirement for the rest of your life unless we sort this out really rapidly. So we cannot take our foot off the accelerator. Additionally, we all know that we need to do more work on pension taxation. It's still an issue. There's still an enormous loss of pension value as part of the erosion of our pay. It's really, really very significant. And overall, we've won before, and we can definitely win again if needs be. As I say, we just stand together. We would say that the DDRB reform has achieved about 90% of what our aims were. And right back last year, when we had the vote on whether to accept the deal, we made it really clear that we are responsible for holding the whole situation to account. And we need to think about how long it is reasonable for us to be paid less than other people, how long it's reasonable for our pay to be held back, how long it's reasonable for us to suffer this situation of the area under the curve, which in terms of lost pay is enormous. Some people will say we had a big bump in pay last year. Not everybody did though. Well, let's have a bit of a look at that. So here's doctors' pay versus IPI. It goes back to 2008. And the black line is the inflation adjusted using RPI, and you can see the value of consultants' pay. If it was 70,000 in 2008, it's now worth the equivalent of 50,000 at that same time. So there's a really significant erosion. Although the dotted blue line, which is the kind of cash award, has gone up, makes you feel richer, but in reality, you're not. Are we all in this together? That's one of the things you hear. If you read don't do it to yourself, but if you read the Daily Mail comments, you'll see everyone will say, well, we've all done badly with pay. Well, here is a graph that shows you that really is not true. This is doctors' pay and other workers' pay against CPI, different form of inflation. And it shows that although there's been a slight increase in the black line at the bottom, which is doctors' pay, it's been matched by everybody else as well. It's not that that's extraordinary, and we are still hugely behind on the position of those other professions. We are often tied to finance and business services and professional, scientific and technical workers in terms of what's happening with our pay, not necessarily in absolute terms, but in changes. You can see just how wide that gulf is now between ours and them. So 25% still to get up to finance and business services. That's how far they've pulled away from us. Bear in mind, the reason we're so far down is because of the financial crash in 2008. And here are just the numbers again for us, just to reinforce it a bit. People might say, well, what's reasonable as a pay award? And obviously the government has tried to do what's called anchoring. They've set this really low level at 2.8. The reason for that is so that you go, oh, look, it's not as bad as it could have been. They offered us a lot less, but it's better. Do not fall for that. That is exactly why they did it. Don't fall for it. At the moment, if you look at what's happening in the private sector, that's a better guide. Even without the need for pay restoration, their pay is going up by 6%. That's a much better guide for what a reasonable amount of money would be. And we need more money on top of that to get towards pay restoration. And if you look at our pay at the moment, here's a little snapshot from one of my many spreadsheets. Is our current top point of the consultant pay scale 139, and some of these other numbers, if you just look above it, you've got what that would be in CPI terms, 155, nearly 156, or in RPI terms, nearly £167,000 a year. So in cash terms, there's a big chunk missing. If you go across to scientific and technical, if our pay had recovered at the same rate, it would not be 139 but 163, and if our pay had kept pace with finance, it would be at 172, not 139. So very significant differences. We've set ourselves a timescale for pay restoration. We felt in 2002 at the BMA ARM that 5 years was a reasonable amount for our pay to correct. The target date is 27-28. To achieve that on the basis of RPI inflation, we need 14% annually at the moment, and against CPI, which is a lower number, not usually accepted by trade unions, not accepted by the government when you owe them money, it's 8% annually. Maybe by the time you're looking at this, we've got our award. This is a table which shows you, depending on the award, how long it would take to get back to pay restoration. And you can see that even at 5%, it's going to take 35 years. At 6%, 16 years. And you can see why we need to be right up at the 14% to get RPI pay restoration. And as I said earlier on, not everybody can wait years and years. And all of the time that we have not caught up, we are hemorrhaging money. The area under the curve of lost earnings is enormous, both for your pay at the moment and also your 2015 pension. It's going to follow you into retirement. The argument you'll be hearing in trusts up and down the country is we're broke, we need to cut our costs. This is inflation, change of prices in both overall prices and health prices. And you can see that pretty much in tandem, the costs are going up. Do you think at the moment hospitals are getting huge discounts on their energy bills from the energy suppliers because they're a bit broke, or maybe from the drugs manufacturers, the pharma companies, or maybe from the suppliers of medical equipment? I can tell you they are not. Why then should the staff be the people subsidising the service? I'm not going to read through all of this. This is the instructions from NHS England, planning support they call it. If you spend a bit of time and pause the page and read this, it says basically that they've got to slash agency spending, they've got to slash locum spending, and we all know that what will happen there is that'll end up being lots of places where people aren't replaced at the last minute, there are gaps on rotas, and we will be picking up the stress, the pieces, and the patients will be picking up the safety issues. None of this is acceptable. Why is there no money? Because you might say to yourself, well, we haven't got any money at the moment. Why is there no money? Well, obviously, without getting too political, it is a political choice, however. The current government said that they were not going to increase taxation. Yet we've got an ageing population, a sicker population. We obviously have got increasing health spending. Here is a graph on tax burden of different countries. So the EU14 at the top as a percentage of GDP, and you can see that the EU14 are taxing at a much higher rate than the UK, down on the yellow or green levels at the bottom. So it's not surprising the service we provide is not as good. And how does that differ across more countries? You can see UK is down in the red, all these other countries above us are taking more tax revenue as a share of GDP. There is no kind of law that says we must not raise taxes. If you haven't got the money via borrowing, or you can't afford your service, you need to increase your tax revenue. That's a political choice. So not to do that means that you are being taxed directly for a very special tax just for people working in the NHS, where your pay is being withheld and sequestered, and they're using that. Why should you pay a different rate of tax than the average person in the country to support the NHS? It's for 67 million people. It should be funded by 67 million people. Here's another way that we're not all in it together. I don't pick on any individuals here. This is just looking across the change of time. I think people that run big NHS organisations are worth every penny. You know, it's a really, really big job. But here's an example of the change in pay in one trust. You can see back in 2003, this particular chief exec was being paid 112,000, and now the same job is attracting £285,000 a year. That's a 160% increase. The hospital's still the same size. RPI in that time, inflation's gone up by 100%. During that same period, maximum consultant pay that you can earn hasn't gone up by 160%. It's not gone up by 100%. It's gone up by 46%. That's just one of the indications as to how much our pay's been eroded. Right, we're going to have a quick look now at extra contractual work. Really important. That's all about base pay. Now we're going to look at extra contractual work, because one of the places where trusts are going to try and cut back further and slash what they give you is for extra contractual work. Can they get it done on the cheap? The sorts of things we're talking about are additional sessions, additional shifts, acting down when nobody's bothered to get a resident doctor locum in because they're trying to save money as instructed by NHS England, or maybe covering long-term colleague absences, all sorts of things which are extra contractual work. Now, just to look at the sorts of amount of money that would be reasonable to pay for this, just to get some numbers into your head. Temporarily at the moment, well, not temporarily, but at the moment we've withdrawn the rate card. The reason I say temporarily is because if there is a pay dispute, we have reserved the right to bring it back in. At the moment, we're awaiting DDRB outcome and government report on that. So at the moment, it's withdrawn. But obviously, if pay doesn't go up at a sensible level, we may be in dispute. So it may be back by the time you hear this. If you work through how much somebody during the time of COVID was being paid who was on the top point of the consultant scale and a level 9, and then you look at the on-costs and things that you wouldn't have to pay if it's on a sessional basis, such as study leave, annual leave, etc., then you come out of these figures at the bottom, which in RPI adjusted terms would be 149, 224 or £298 an hour, depending on the time of day when you're working for those premium sessions. Just in case you think that's an extraordinary amount of money, and hopefully you don't, because you are very talented individuals doing a stressful job after a very, very long training, let's look at something similar. Solicitors Guideline hourly rates. These are for what government pays solicitors to look at assessment of court costs. And this was last updated January 2025. So if you are a solicitor based in London, you've got over 8 years experience, you're looking at between £312 to £566 an hour. So these are people really with probably potentially less experience than a consultant. It took me, maybe I'm a slow learner, but it took me 17 years or so to become a consultant surgeon because of all the craft elements that you need to learn. So significantly more than 8. When you talk about how much money you demand to do these additional extra contractual sessions, people will have a million excuses as to why you are being unreasonable. Do not believe it for a minute, and I'm just going to talk you through the excuses and why you shouldn't accept it. They may say you cannot hold the department to ransom. Again, we're talking about here extra contractual work. You've got the choice to value that. Your pay is not down 35% anymore, but still 25%. And it's only appropriate that if you're doing additional work that you are paid the going rate for it. You've got a responsibility to patients. Won't you think of the patients? Well, of course, we all take that very, very seriously, but you're already delivering your contract. This is on top of that. So it needs to be at a sensible rate of pay. It's very definitely not a GMC matter if you refuse to do this stuff. Indeed, actually threatening it being a GMC matter. That truly is a GMC matter, because that's threatening behaviour. You're taking money from other staff or from patients. It's not your job to subsidise the pay of other people like nurses or porters or anybody else in the hospital. It's not your job to subsidise the health service by being underpaid. It's a responsibility of government to make sensible political decisions. Like, if it wants a health service doing lots of work and it wants to recruit, retain and motivate staff, it needs to pay appropriately. And if that means changing their policies to do that, they need to do that, not you. Your colleagues are agreeing to less. Well, if you've got colleagues that are doing it, you'll never convince everybody to stand up for a certain amount of money. Don't be disheartened. It's still very difficult to make an impact to things like waiting lists if most people are holding back. So I would suggest you stand together. As I explained before, you're not being greedy. Pays down a long way. Demand your worth. You really are worth it. You're already well paid. Well, we're well paid, commensurate maybe to some jobs with less onerous qualifications, difficulty of entry, training, responsibility, stress, all the rest of it. But you've seen already how pay has changed across the sector and across the whole of the UK, and your pay has fallen way behind. There's a financial crisis. We've explained that extensively. It's not in my budget. I'm afraid that's a you problem, is what it comes down to. It's not professional. It's highly professional, actually, to value your skills appropriately. What isn't professional is to try and undermine that. You can't undermine a solicitor, an accountant, an actuary, a chief financial officer by telling them that them demanding their going rate is not professional. It's far from the case. Indeed, the very definition of being professional is that you do something for pay. So, final points. This is very definitely the case. The other side, government employers, are trying to get work on the cheap. Some of that is on the basis of your basic pay, but also some of it is work additional to contract. Always remember who has got the problem. And here they have the problem. And when you've got the solution and the other side has the problem, you have the power. But you can only exercise that by standing together. And we can only do that by having discussions with each other about this kind of stuff. And everybody is responsible for that. It's not kind of central BMA thing. We all need to discuss that. Winning is undoubtedly a team effort, and we're all a team. So thanks very much for listening. I'll stop it there. There's no doubt be more materials, and all the very best. Take care.